Antonio Brown and Stephen A. Smith are back at it. This time, it's personal. In new footage, Brown warns Smith to keep his name out of his mouth, but Smith fires back.
I don't get paid to talk to you. I get paid to talk about it.
Now the feud has spiraled into chaos, with gunshots and an attempted murder charge shaking everything up. Let's get into it. The modern warfare.
As it pertains to him coming at me and talking along the lines of we can speak, there have been several opportunities in the past when Antonio Brown has had an opportunity to speak to me. He has passed.
The year 2025 began with what many thought would be a quiet period in the Antonio Brown versus Stephen Smith saga. After all, Brown had been out of the NFL for over 3 years. His legal troubles were mounting, and Smith had seemingly moved on to bigger targets in his commentary career. But if there's one thing we've learned about this feud, it's that it never truly dies. It just hibernates until the next explosive moment, ready to resurface with renewed venom and increasingly bizarre twists. Even after blocking each other on social media, the two have continued to relentlessly go after each other.
Also, he's passed in terms of blocking me on social media. I was never following him, but I guess he didn't want me seeing any of his stuff either, as if I cared, because I don't.
The most recent chapter in this ongoing drama began to unfold around January 6, 2025, when Antonio Brown replied to Stephen Smith's Quanda with a meme saying, "Who does this remind you of?" at Stephen Smith, continuing to taunt him. What made this particular exchange different wasn't just the typical back and forth we'd grown accustomed to, but the timing and context surrounding it. A context that revealed just how far Brown had fallen from grace and how desperate his attempts at relevance had become. The backdrop for this latest confrontation was the explosive lawsuit that had just rocked Fox Sports, sending shockwaves through the sports media landscape. Joy Taylor was named in a lawsuit filed in January 2025 by former Fox Sports hairstylist Naushin Faraji, alleging workplace misconduct, sexual assault, and discrimination. The lawsuit contained 14 separate counts and painted a disturbing picture of the work environment at the network, with Taylor allegedly playing a significant role in fostering and maintaining a toxic workplace culture. The allegations were serious and wide-ranging. Faraji alleged that Taylor told her she would claim Dixon forced himself on her when he was no longer useful to her, and that Taylor told Faraji to get over it when Faraji told her about an incident. The lawsuit described a pattern of inappropriate behavior, sexual harassment, and a workplace environment where female employees were routinely objectified and mistreated. Stephen Smith, never one to shy away from controversy, had commented on this lawsuit in his capacity as a sports commentator. Smith acted as a character witness for Skip Bayless, expressing heartbreak for Bayless and noting that people with knowledge say Faraji is meticulous with details. His comments, while measured and professional, demonstrated the kind of thoughtful analysis that had made him one of the most respected voices in sports media.
Has it been about Charlie Dixon? Not that much. Has it even been about Skip Bayless? Not that much at all. Has it been about Fox Sports overall? Really, not that much at all. It's all significantly paled in comparison to the level of vitriol, venom, insults, and beyond aimed at one Miss Joy Taylor.
But Antonio Brown, lurking in the digital shadows as he had for years, saw an opportunity to insert himself into the narrative. His response wasn't about the serious allegations or the workplace culture issues that the lawsuit raised. It was simply another chance to take shots at Stephen Smith. The pattern was all too familiar. A major sports story breaks, Stephen Smith provides commentary, and Antonio Brown materializes from wherever he's hiding to take potshots at the ESPN personality. The day after Smith's comments, January 7th, 2025, Antonio Brown made a derogatory comment on X about Joy Taylor, saying Joy Taylor had to put the girls away after them allegations, alongside a picture from her Fox Sports show. Perhaps one of the most bizarre and telling recent incidents in their feud occurred during the NBA Finals, when Antonio Brown mocked Stephen Smith for his player-like tunnel entrance at Game 4 of the NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. Brown posted on social media saying, "Somebody tell this nigga he not playing," mocking Smith's grand entrance at the American Airlines Center. Stephen Smith wore a light pink outfit, complete with a matching coat, pants, and tie, and was followed by cameramen as he entered the arena. What should have been a moment of professional triumph for Smith, covering one of sports' biggest events in style and demonstrating his status as one of the most important voices in sports media, became another opportunity for Brown to diminish and mock the ESPN personality. To truly understand the depth and complexity of the Antonio Brown versus Stephen Smith feud, we must travel back to its origins, a time when Brown was still one of the most electrifying players in the the NFL, commanding multi-million-dollar contracts and capturing headlines for his on-field brilliance rather than his off-field antics. During this period, Stephen Smith was doing what he does best, providing unfiltered, intelligent commentary on the biggest stories in sports. What began as routine sports analysis would eventually morph into something far more personal and destructive, creating a blueprint for how professional relationships can deteriorate in the social media age. From professional criticism to personal vendetta. The transformation of their relationship from professional critic and subject to bitter enemies didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, marked by specific incidents that escalated tensions. The first significant public clash between Brown and Smith came during Brown's tumultuous and brief tenure with the Oakland Raiders in 2019, a period that would prove to be a turning point not just in Brown's career, but in his relationship with sports media in general, and Stephen Smith in particular. This was the moment when legitimate sports criticism began to transform into something more personal and vindictive. Antonio Brown's time with the Raiders began with promise after being traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers in March 2019, but issues arose early with a helmet dispute as his preferred model was no longer NFL approved, leading to grievances and threats of retirement. The trade itself had been controversial, with Brown essentially forcing his way out of Pittsburgh through a series of increasingly erratic behaviors and public complaints about his teammates and coaches. But it was the helmet saga that really captured the sports world's attention and provided the first major battleground between Brown and Smith. Brown's helmet controversy consumed his Raiders' tenure as he fought against NFL safety regulations that banned his preferred Schutt Air Advantage helmet because it was over 10 years old. The situation was both ridiculous and revealing. Here was one of the most talented players in the league threatening to retire over headgear. Smith, never one to mince words when he sees behavior that he considers detrimental to the sport, was highly critical of Brown's conduct during this period. But his criticism went far beyond simple disapproval. It demonstrated his deep understanding of the broader implications of Brown's actions. On August 13, 2019, Smith called Brown an absolute idiot for his actions, particularly for making a fuss over the helmet issue after signing a $50 million contract with $30 million, guaranteed from the Raiders. Antonio Brown is not there just to produce on the field. He's there to help other guys along as well. And here you are acting like an absolute idiot over this helmet issue, embarrassing yourself and some of your contemporaries. But Smith's criticism went even deeper than individual accountability. He understood the broader implications of Brown's behavior and wasn't afraid to address them head-on in ways that other commentators avoided. Smith argued that Brown's behavior could be used by NFL owners to stigmatize other black players, particularly young wide receivers, potentially affecting their opportunities. This was vintage Stephen Smith, taking a sports story and connecting it to larger social and racial issues within the NFL. Smith stated, "They're going to use Antonio Brown. They're going to look at his behavior and they're going to say, see, this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. I'm not saying it's going to be fair. I'm not saying it's the right thing for owners to do, but the reality of the situation is that these are the kind of things that transpire. It's going to be used against black Americans, particularly black wide receivers, in terms of justifying not paying them or not trusting them." This analysis proved prophetic in many ways, as Brown's behavior did indeed become a cautionary tale that many pointed to in discussions about player conduct and reliability. The helmet controversy that consumed Brown's Raiders tenure provided Stephen Smith with plenty of material for commentary, and Smith didn't hold back in his analysis. The situation escalated when Brown missed team activities and was fined, publicly posting the fine letters on social media and criticizing the team. Smith's response to Brown's helmet tantrum was scathing and comprehensive, representing some of his most passionate and well-reasoned commentary on player behavior. In a memorable rant that would later be cited as one of his most powerful takes on individual responsibility versus team obligations, Smith laid out exactly why Brown's actions were not just ridiculous, but potentially harmful to the sport itself.
I hope that the NFL calls Antonio Brown's bluff. I wish they came out with a statement that said, "I dare your behind to retire. You're a new fool. Hell you think you are. Must have lost your damn mind."
But the most powerful and controversial part of Smith's commentary during this period was his willingness to address the racial implications of Brown's behavior directly and unflinchingly.
I got a problem most white people cannot say, and that is this. When you look at an Antonio Brown and you see the way he's acting and the spectacle that he's made of this, you know what the NFL owners are saying? You see why we got to be careful about who we give money to? We can't give money to those dudes.
Smith understood that Brown's behavior didn't exist in a vacuum, and that other players, particularly young black players entering the league, might suffer consequences because of Brown's actions. He was willing to say what others wouldn't, that Brown's behavior was reinforcing negative stereotypes that could hurt other players, opportunities.
Antonio Brown has literally 30 plus other helmet options. Did you know that the NFL has been telling the players for the last 5 years that this was coming down the pipe? At this particular moment in time? And they had a 5-year window to prepare themselves to make this transition to wearing a new helmet?
The feud between Brown and Smith reached new heights of complexity and seriousness during Brown's brief stint with the New England Patriots in September 2019. Brown signed with the Patriots on September 7, 2019, but his tenure was short-lived due to sexual misconduct allegations, leading to his release in September 2019. This period demonstrated Smith's ability to maintain professional standards, even when covering extremely sensitive and serious allegations. When the sexual assault allegations against Brown became public, Smith found himself in the difficult position of having to cover a story that involved serious criminal allegations against a player he had already been critical of. The situation required a delicate balance between maintaining his role as a sports commentator and showing appropriate sensitivity to the serious nature of the allegations.
Has been accused of rape. There are allegations of rape by his former trainer, a female by the name of Miss Brittany Taylor. She has accused him of rape, and as a result, he appears to be in a world of trouble.
Smith's handling of the sexual assault allegations was professional and measured.
In a world of trouble. We are not about to sit up here and engage in the guilt or innocence. It is an allegation. We have absolutely no evidence whatsoever to cast any judgment whatsoever as it pertains to this particular issue.
This responsible approach to covering serious allegations would later contrast sharply with how Brown himself would handle similar situations involving other people.
It would be incredibly irresponsible and, dare I say, unfair to castigate him as somebody who's guilty of the allegations that have been levied against him.
Even though he had been highly critical of Brown's behavior in other contexts, he refused to let that criticism color his coverage of serious criminal allegations. But the relationship between Brown and Smith reached its lowest during Brown's infamous Instagram meltdown in January 2020, an incident that marked the point where their relationship moved from professional disagreement to personal animosity. The incident began on January 13, 2020, when Brown posted a disturbing Instagram live video showing a heated altercation with police and the mother of his children, using strong language.
For real, man. They got this girl over here acting like she live with me, man. She supposed to get up out of here. These girls be so broke. They trying to force themselves in, man. You can't force your way in, man. Can't force your way in on the go.
The video was deeply disturbing on multiple levels. In the 32-minute interaction, Brown accused Chelsea Kyrus of trespassing and used profanity extensively, including throwing gummy candies that he referred to as a bag of dicks at police officers. The presence of children during this confrontation made the situation even more troubling and demonstrated Brown's complete lack of judgment about what was appropriate to broadcast publicly. Smith's response to this video marked a turning point in his coverage of Brown. He could no longer maintain the pretense that this was simply about sports or professional behavior. This was clearly someone who needed help.
I was wrong. I wouldn't bring him on my NFL team. He's got problems.
Smith's analysis of the police officer's behavior was particularly insightful and demonstrated his ability to find important details that others might miss.
The police officers, I believe it was in Hollywood, Florida, that's what he said, they showed incredible restraint. He was calling them the B word. He was calling them the N word. He was yelling at them. I mean, they turned their backs, they walked away.
For Smith, this wasn't just about football anymore. It was about recognizing seriously problematic behavior and calling it out appropriately.
He seemed completely out of control. And again, understand this, ladies and gentlemen, it's a bad look. But for you yourself to put that on video, for the world to see, while you're supposedly trying to get back into the National Football League, how does that possibly help you?
This question got to the heart of what made Brown's behavior so baffling to Smith and others. Brown was supposedly trying to rehabilitate his image and return to the NFL, yet he was constantly engaging in behavior that made him less employable, not more. It was during this period that Brown first directly challenged Smith publicly, marking the moment when their relationship shifted from Smith criticizing Brown's behavior to Brown actively seeking confrontation with Smith. On January 16, 2020, Brown tweeted at Smith, "Didn't know words was a crime? We can exchange words. How about you come to South Florida and let's speak quite frankly," at Stephen Smith. Smith's response was measured but firm, showing a level of compassion that would become increasingly rare as their feud progressed.
Well, first of all, it's not going to be a fired up conversation on my part because I'm at a point where I feel incredibly sorry for what I'm witnessing take place in the life of Antonio Brown.
This response revealed Smith's understanding that something was genuinely wrong with Brown, even as Brown was publicly challenging him to a confrontation. Rather than responding with anger or accepting the challenge, Smith chose to express concern and sympathy.
Some have speculated they think that he has CTE. He's suffering from that right now. We don't know. I don't know that, but I know that he doesn't seem to have been the same since nearly getting decapitated by Vontaze Burfict and looking like rigor mortis was kicking in right on the turf, for crying out loud.
The final major incident that cemented the antagonistic relationship between Brown and Smith was Brown's dramatic exit from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in January 2022. Brown walked off the field during a game against the New York Jets, removing his jersey and equipment mid-game, in what many considered one of the most unprofessional displays in NFL history. The incident occurred in the third quarter with Tampa Bay trailing 24-10, when Brown was seen in a heated exchange with teammate Mike Evans before removing his pads, jersey, gloves, and t-shirt, running shirtless from the field through the end zone and into the tunnel. The spectacle was unprecedented in professional sports, a player literally quitting on his team in the middle of a game, broadcasting his departure for all to see. For Smith, this incident represented the final proof that Brown was beyond redemption as a professional athlete. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had given Brown a chance when no other team would. Tom Brady had personally vouched for him, and the organization had bent over backwards to accommodate his issues. His response was to abandon them in the middle of a game in the most public and humiliating way possible. By the end of this period, Smith had evolved from a critic hoping Brown could turn his career around to someone who saw Brown as a cautionary tale about wasted talent and self-destructive behavior. Brown, meanwhile, had identified Smith as a primary target for his resentment, setting up the personal vendetta that would consume both of their public personas in the years to follow. The descent into madness. One of the most significant and controversial moments in the evolution of Smith's commentary on Brown came in November 2019, when Smith made what many considered his most provocative statement about the former NFL star. The timing was crucial. Brown had just gone through his disastrous stint with the Patriots, was facing serious legal issues, and was engaging in increasingly erratic social media behavior that seemed to confirm Smith's worst fears about his mental state. On November 11, 2019, during ESPN's First Take, Stephen Smith addressed Brown's behavior, stating, "The best defense for Antonio Brown is damn near an insanity plea." This wasn't Smith being flippant or cruel. It was his genuine assessment, based on months of observing Brown's behavior, that mental health issues seemed like the only logical explanation for the series of self-destructive decisions that had characterized Brown's recent career. Smith elaborated, "Right now, he needs to come up with some sort of insanity plea. There's no other excuse between how he conducted himself in Pittsburgh, what he did in Oakland, standing up to John Gruden, and then taping a conversation. At the time you were doing it, you were violating California state law. It's just that Gruden is not going to pursue it." Smith's analysis was based on a pattern of behavior that seemed to defy rational explanation. Brown had forced his way out of Pittsburgh, one of the most stable and successful organizations in the NFL. He had sabotaged his opportunity in Oakland over a helmet dispute that had no logical basis. He had blown his chance with the Patriots by engaging in behavior that violated explicit instructions from the team. Each decision seemed designed to destroy his own career prospects. The final phase of Brown's NFL career was marked by increasingly unhinged social media behavior that often targeted Smith directly, representing a new phase in their feud, where Brown was no longer responding to Smith's criticism, but proactively attacking him as part of broader rants against various targets. In December 2019, Antonio Brown launched a staggering assault on former teammates, the NFL, and even Stephen Smith through a Twitter meltdown that included expletives, accusations of racism, and personal attacks. These attacks represented a new low in their relationship and demonstrated Brown's complete disconnection from professional professional norms and social conventions. Brown was no longer responding to specific criticism from Smith. He was proactively attacking the ESPN personality as part of broader social media rants that seemed disconnected from reality and divorced from any rational strategy for rehabilitating his image or career prospects. The Twitter meltdown included calling Ben Roethlisberger a loser and making various other wild accusations that essentially ended any possibility of Brown returning to the NFL. The attacks on former teammates, coaches, and media figures created a comprehensive bridge-burning exercise that made it impossible for any NFL team to consider signing Brown, regardless of his talent level. The targeting of Smith during these rants seemed particularly vindictive and personal, suggesting that Brown's resentment toward the ESPN personality had grown beyond simple response to criticism into something more obsessive and concerning. Smith had become a symbol in Brown's mind of everything he felt was wrong with the media coverage of his career, even though Smith's criticism had generally been fair and well-reasoned. The most recent and serious chapter in Brown's downward spiral has been the attempted murder charges that emerged in 2025, representing the complete transformation of Brown from elite athlete to accused violent criminal. In June 2025, reports emerged that Antonio Brown was wanted on attempted murder charges stemming from a shooting incident at a celebrity boxing event in Miami. The warrant was signed by a judge and lists a charge of attempted murder with a firearm, calling for Brown to post a $10,000 bond and remain under house arrest pending trial. According to the warrant, Miami police detectives obtained video footage that appears to show Brown punching another man, sparking a melee, and later shows Brown appearing to take the gun of a security officer and running toward the man he had punched, with cell phone video capturing 2 gunshots as Brown approaches the victim. The allegations paint a picture of someone who has completely lost control, escalating from social media rants and professional misconduct to potentially violent criminal behavior. The incident reportedly occurred during a celebrity boxing event hosted by popular streamer Adin Ross, with multiple videos showing Brown in physical altercations before gunshots were fired. Even faced with such serious legal consequences, Brown continued his social media behavior, demonstrating a complete disconnection from the gravity of his situation. Reports indicated that Brown had apparently left the country while the warrant was still pending, posting on social media, "I'm out the country, ain't no more child support. Tell your mama get a job." Despite his concerning social media outbursts, there has been growing evidence that Brown isn't even writing his own social media posts, adding another layer of tragedy and confusion to his story. Multiple reports have indicated that someone else has been running Antonio Brown's Twitter account, with evidence pointing to a white individual, possibly using racial slurs while pretending to be Brown. Investigation revealed that a UCF basketball staffer appeared to be managing Brown's social media accounts under a CTSPN brand, with evidence suggesting this individual was responsible for many of the tweets that included racial slurs and inflammatory content. Throughout this entire saga, Smith's approach to covering Brown has evolved significantly, demonstrating his growth as a commentator and his genuine concern for Brown's well-being. What began as standard sports criticism has transformed into something more complex, part social commentary, part intervention attempt, part cautionary tale about the dangers of untreated mental health issues and social media addiction. The two continue to go at each other with no end in sight. We can only wait for the next scandal and see what they are going to say about each other. Meanwhile, if you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.